It's 11:47 p.m., almost midnight. Another long, thankless shift was finally nearing its end. Amelia was tired, bone-tired. Her apron, once a crisp white, was now stained with the ghosts of forgotten breakfasts and dinners. A lingering smell of fried onions and stale coffee clung to her uniform, a scent that felt like a permanent part of her now. The fabric felt heavy, clinging to her like a second skin. She was 24, but the constant worry etched lines around her eyes, making her look older than her years. Every dollar she earned at the diner, every ache in her back, every blister on her heel, went straight to rent, groceries, and medicine for her ailing grandmother. Her grandmother, Clara, was the only family Amelia had left, and Clara's health was fading faster than the diner's peeling paint. There was never enough money, never a moment to breathe, to dream. Dreams felt like a luxury she couldn't afford, like a meal she could only smell from outside a fancy restaurant. The diner was mostly empty now, just a few stragglers. An old man in a booth by the window, lost in thought over a cold coffee. A young couple whispering secrets over a shared slice of apple pie. And then there was the table in the far corner, near the flickering neon sign that advertised best coffee in town. It had been occupied for hours by a man who seemed entirely out of place. He wore a tailored suit, dark and expensive, the kind Amelia only ever saw in glossy magazines or on television. His silver hair was perfectly combed, not a strand out of place. Even after a long night, his hands, as he carefully lifted his teacup, looked soft, unburdened by any kind of labor. They were the hands of a man who had likely never scrubbed a floor or lifted a heavy tray. He had paid his bill with a crisp $100 bill, leaving a generous tip. This was rare for this part of town, where most customers counted every penny. Amelia had watched him leave just a few minutes ago, his powerful presence a stark contrast to the worn-out booths and chipped mugs of the diner. He had moved with a quiet dignity, a man apart. Amelia sighed, a small puff of tired air. She moved towards his recently vacated table. The worn vinyl of the booth creaked under her weight as she leaned over. She picked up the heavy ceramic mug and the crumpled napkin, ready to wipe the table clean for the next morning's rush. Underneath where his arm had rested, something dark and rectangular glinted. Amelia paused, her hand hovering in the air. Her eyes, tired just moments before, sharpened. It was a wallet, a thick, dark leather wallet. It looked expensive, just like the man who owned it. The leather was smooth, without a scratch, not like the worn-out fake leather of her own purse. Her heart gave a sudden, hard thump against her ribs. She picked it up. It was heavy, much heavier than an empty wallet should be. A quick glance inside revealed a stack of bills, so thick it made her breath catch in her throat. Hundreds, 50s, 20s, a small fortune, piled neatly, almost carelessly, inside the rich leather folds. It was more money than she had seen in one place in her entire life. Next to the money, a driver's license showed the face of the silver-haired man. His eyes in the photo were sharp, unsmiling. His name was Arthur Sterling. And the address listed on the license was in a part of the city Amelia knew only from bus tours that passed through the wealthy neighborhoods. Sprawling estates, manicured lawns, gates taller than her apartment building, security cameras on every corner. This man was not just well off. He was clearly very, very rich. He was in a different world entirely. Amelia's mind raced, a whirlwind of desperate thoughts. This wasn't just pocket change. This was more money than she made in a month, maybe even 2 months or 3. The image of her grandmother's tired eyes, growing weaker each day, flashed before her. Clara's breath often came in ragged gasps, and the pharmacy bills were piling higher than Amelia's tallest stack of clean plates. The doctor had said Clara needed new, expensive medication, something Amelia couldn't even dream of affording. The landlord's threatening notes, demanding overdue rent for their tiny, drafty apartment, haunted her sleep. The broken heating system, sputtering and failing in the cold city nights, that she couldn't afford to fix. All the worries that gnawed at her day and night suddenly seemed to have a solution, right here, in her trembling hand, a way out, a sudden, unexpected escape from the crushing weight of her life. No one else was looking. The cook, old Mr. Henderson, was in the back, clattering pots and humming a tuneless song, his back turned to the dining area. The other waitress, Brenda, had already clocked out and headed home. Amelia was alone. Alone with this immense, unexpected temptation. A voice in her head, small and insistent, whispered of all the problems this money could solve. It wasn't stealing, not really. It was just finding it. He probably wouldn't even miss it. Not a man like him, with his expensive suit and fancy address. He had so much. She had so little. What was a few $1,000s to someone who probably had millions? It would be like finding a single coin on the street for him. For her, it was salvation. It was warmth for Clara, food on the table, a chance for a little peace. She imagined herself walking into the pharmacy, handing over the thick stack of bills, watching the pharmacist's surprised face. She pictured Clara's smile, free from pain, a genuine smile she hadn't seen in months. She could fix the heater, buy decent food, maybe even put a little aside for a rainy day, for a future that suddenly seemed possible, even if just for a moment. The thought was intoxicating, like a sip of the most expensive wine. But another voice, louder and clearer, echoed her grandmother's gentle but firm lessons. Honesty is the only true wealth, Amelia. It's the one thing no one can ever take from you. A clear conscience is worth more than all the gold in the world. Clara had always said that, even when they barely had 2 pennies to rub together. Clara, who always shared her last bite of bread, who always gave a warm smile even when her own heart was heavy. Clara, who taught Amelia to be proud of her humble life, to hold her head high, no matter what. Amelia closed her eyes for a moment, the smooth leather of the wallet warm in her palm. The scent of old diner grease, stale coffee, and a hint of her own desperation filled her nostrils. She took a deep, shaky breath, trying to steady her racing heart. No, she couldn't. It wasn't hers. It didn't matter how much she needed it, or how much it might ease her burdens, or how much she deserved a break. It belonged to Arthur Sterling. To take it would be to betray Clara, to betray herself, to betray every principle she held dear. It would make her no better than the people who had taken advantage of her family, the people who had always seemed to get ahead by stepping on others. She would lose the one thing she truly had, her integrity. She had to return it. But how? The man was long gone, probably speeding away in a luxury car, already miles from this forgotten corner of the city. He might be a billionaire for all she knew, someone whose world was a million miles away from hers. What if he didn't even remember where he'd lost it? What if he thought she had stolen it? A cold dread settled in her stomach. The idea of facing a man like Arthur Sterling, of trying to explain herself, made her hands clammy. What if he accused her? What if he thought she was lying? A poor waitress from a rundown diner, holding a rich man's wallet. It would look bad. Returning it would not be simple. It might even be dangerous in a way she couldn't yet imagine. Yet, a stubborn sense of duty, a deep-rooted belief in doing the right thing, burned brighter than her fear or her desperation. This was more than just a wallet. It was a test of everything her grandmother had taught her, everything she believed about herself. Her grandmother's face, serene and full of quiet strength, formed in her mind. Clara would be proud. Amelia would be proud of herself. She decided then, in the quiet, dim light of the closing diner, that she would find Arthur Sterling. She would return his wallet. She looked at the address on the driver's license again. The exclusive Silverwood Estates. A gated community that might as well be on another planet. How would she even get there? She didn't have a car. The bus didn't go anywhere near Silverwood. It would take hours, maybe even all night, to get there and back, especially with the rain still coming down in sheets. She would lose precious hours of sleep, hours she needed before her next shift. But the decision was made. There was no turning back. As she carefully tucked the wallet into her own worn purse, a faint, almost unnoticeable pattern on the leather caught her eye. It wasn't just smooth. There was a tiny, barely visible symbol pressed into the corner, a small, elegant crest. It looked like a stylized S entwined with a hawk's wing. It meant nothing to her, just a fancy detail on an expensive item. She dismissed it as quickly as she noticed it, her mind already consumed with the daunting task ahead. She had no idea that this one simple, honest choice, made out of pure integrity in a moment of profound personal struggle, would ripple outwards, touching every corner of her struggling life. She couldn't know that the silver-haired man, Arthur Sterling, was not just rich, but incredibly powerful, a titan of industry whose decisions shaped markets and lives across the globe. She didn't know that his life was far more complicated than it appeared, filled with its own hidden struggles and burdens. She certainly couldn't have guessed that this single act of kindness would lead to a confrontation with a past she didn't know existed, a past connected to that very symbol on the wallet, and ultimately, to a decision that would force her to choose between her humble values and a life she could only dream of. The stakes were far higher than a lost wallet. They were about to become life-changing, for better or for worse. She just didn't know it yet. But her world was about to tilt on its axis, driven by the simple weight of a leather wallet and the stubborn strength of her honest heart. The next morning dawned gray and wet, just like the evening before. Amelia had barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the stack of money, then Clara's frail face, then the stern features of Arthur Sterling from his driver's license. She had tossed and turned, her mind replaying the moment she found the wallet, the battle between her needs and her principles. She had left the diner well past midnight, the rain still pouring. Her journey home had been a long, cold walk, the city streets slick and empty. She lived in a small, worn-out apartment building on the edges of the city, a place where the paint peeled and the stairwell always smelled faintly of mildew. Clara was asleep when Amelia finally crept in, her breathing shallow and uneven in the dim light of their shared bedroom. Amelia had slipped the wallet deep into her purse, hidden from sight, a secret burden she carried. Now, with the first weak light of dawn, Amelia began her mission. She couldn't go directly to Silverwood Estates. She had a morning shift at the diner, starting at 6 a.m. Her boss, Mr. Rodriguez, a man with a booming voice and a kind heart, wouldn't tolerate her being late. She needed to figure out how to return the wallet without missing work or drawing attention to herself. She quickly dressed in her cleanest uniform, though the fabric was thin and faded. After a quick check on Clara, who was still sleeping, Amelia scribbled a note on a napkin. Went to the store. Be back soon. She knew Clara would worry if she woke up to an empty apartment. She then grabbed her purse, the leather wallet, a heavy presence inside. Her first stop was a small, dusty internet cafe a few blocks from her apartment. She rarely used computers, couldn't afford one, but she knew she needed information. She paid for 30 minutes of internet access, the old computer humming loudly as it booted up. Her fingers, usually nimble with trays and coffee cups, felt clumsy on the keyboard. She typed Arthur Sterling into the search bar. The results flooded the screen, an overwhelming cascade of articles, news reports, and company profiles. Arthur Sterling was not just rich, he was a titan. The CEO of Sterling Global Industries, a massive corporation with holdings in technology, real estate, and philanthropy. His face, sharper and more imposing than on his driver's license, stared out from countless photos. He was a force of nature, a man who built empires, who influenced global markets. He was known for his ruthless business tactics, but also for his unexpected acts of charity. A complex man, Amelia realized, far beyond her simple understanding. An article headline caught her eye. Sterling Global CEO's Family History, The Sterling Legacy. She clicked on it. The article detailed Arthur Sterling's lineage, his ancestors' contributions to the city, the growth of Sterling Global through generations. Then, she saw it, a picture of the Sterling family crest. It was the same stylized, is entwined with a hawk's wing, the exact symbol embossed on the corner of the wallet. It wasn't just a fancy detail. It was a personal emblem, a mark of his family. Her decision to return it solidified even further. This was a man of immense legacy, not just immense wealth. She continued to scroll, looking for any way to contact him directly. A general corporate number, an assistant's email address, nothing personal. A direct approach seemed impossible. She couldn't just walk into Sterling Global headquarters and demand to see the CEO. They would laugh her out of the building, or worse, call security. She glanced at the time. Her shift started in 40 minutes. Panic began to set in. She couldn't be late. She had to think fast. Then an idea, a desperate, risky idea, sparked in her mind. She quickly searched for Sterling Global Industries Security Department. Bingo! A general contact number for corporate security appeared. It was a long shot, but it was her only shot. She jotted down the number on a napkin, then logged off, her 30 minutes almost up. She rushed out of the cafe and walked quickly towards the diner, the rain still drizzling, clinging to her hair and clothes. She arrived just as Mr. Rodriguez was unlocking the door. Mr. Rodriguez said, "Morning, Amelia. You're early today." Amelia said, Morning, Mr. Rodriguez. Just trying to get a head start. She managed a small smile, trying to hide her internal turmoil. The morning rush was a blur of coffee orders, pancake stacks, and the clatter of plates. Amelia moved with practiced efficiency. Her mind, however, was elsewhere. She kept thinking about the wallet, about Arthur Sterling, about the impossible task ahead. During a brief lull, she slipped into the small, cramped office in the back, pulling out her napkin with the phone number. Her hands trembled slightly as she dialed. A crisp, professional voice answered. A stern voice said, "Sterling Global Security. How may I help you?" Amelia took a deep breath. Amelia said, "Hello, my name is Amelia. I'm a waitress at the Liberty Diner. Last night, one of I believe, your CEO, Mr. Arthur Sterling, left his wallet behind. I found it." There was a moment of silence on the other end, a silence that felt heavy and suspicious. The stern voice said, "And how did you obtain this number, miss?" Amelia said, "I looked it up. I searched for Sterling Global Security. I just want to return the wallet. It has a lot of money in it. And his ID." Another pause. Then, the voice softened, a hint of surprise in its tone. The stern voice said, "I see. One moment, please." Amelia waited, her heart hammering. She could hear hushed voices on the other end, a low murmur of conversation, then the click of a hold button. The diner sounds faded, replaced by the sterile hum of the phone line. What if they thought she was trying to scam them? What if they didn't believe her? She gripped the phone tighter. After what felt like an eternity, the voice returned, this time with a different, more urgent edge. The stern voice said, "Miss Amelia, thank you for contacting us. Can you describe the wallet?" Amelia said, "Yes. It's dark leather, very thick. It has a lot of cash, hundreds, fifties, and Mr. Sterling's driver's license. There's also a small crest, an S with a hawk's wing, on the corner, a sharp intake of breath on the other end." The stern voice said, "That's it. You are certain you have the wallet?" Amelia said, "Yes, I'm certain. I have it with me now. I just finished my shift. I'm still on my shift, but it's slow, and I wanted to call right away." The stern voice said, "Do not move, Miss Amelia. Do not give the wallet to anyone else. Someone will be dispatched immediately to your location to verify and retrieve it. Can you confirm the address of the Liberty Diner?" Amelia gave the address, her voice a little shaky. The stern voice said, "Understood. Our team will be there within the hour. Please wait for them. They will identify themselves with Sterling Global ID badges. Do not hand it over to anyone else." Amelia said, "Okay, I will. Thank you." She hung up, her hands still shaking. It was done. The first step, anyway. Now she just had to wait. The thought of security personnel from Sterling Global showing up at the diner filled her with a mix of dread and relief. Dread because of the sheer formality and power they represented. Relief because the burden of the wallet would soon be gone. She went back out to the dining area, trying to act normal, pouring coffee for a customer, wiping tables. But her eyes kept darting to the door, expecting to see a team of suited men burst in at any moment. Mr. Henderson, the cook, noticed her unusual behavior. "Mr. Henderson said, "Everything all right, Amelia? You look like you've seen a ghost." Amelia forced a smile. Amelia said, "Just a long night, Mr. Henderson. Tired." He nodded, unconvinced, but went back to flipping pancakes. Around 30 minutes later, a sleek, black sedan pulled up outside the diner. It was far too fancy for this neighborhood. Two men in dark suits, broad-shouldered and serious-faced, stepped out. They moved with a quiet authority that immediately drew attention. Amelia's heart leaped into her throat. This was it. They entered the diner, their eyes scanning the room. Amelia, still clutching her coffee pot, felt their gaze land on her. She straightened, took a deep breath, and walked towards them. Amelia said, "Can I help you?" One of the men, taller than the other, with a stern but not unkind face, pulled out a laminated ID badge. He held it up. The tall man said, "Amelia? I'm Agent Miller. This is Agent Davis. We're with Sterling Global Security. We received a call about a lost item." Amelia said, "Yes, it's Mr. Sterling's wallet. I have it right here." She reached into her purse, her fingers fumbling slightly, and pulled out the thick leather wallet. She held it out to Agent Miller. Agent Miller took the wallet carefully, his eyes briefly sweeping over it, then looking directly into Amelia's. His gaze was intense, as if trying to read her soul. Agent Miller said, "Thank you, Miss Amelia. You have no idea how important this is." Agent Davis, the shorter, stockier man, took out a small device and began to scan the wallet. A green light flashed. He nodded to Agent Miller. Agent Davis said, "All clear, Miller. Everything accounted for." Agent Miller opened the wallet, just enough to see the stack of cash and the ID. He didn't count it, just verified its presence. He then looked at Amelia again, a hint of something unreadable in his expression. Agent Miller said, "We appreciate your honesty, Miss Amelia. Mr. Sterling is very particular about his personal effects. You did a great service." Amelia felt a wave of relief wash over her. It was really happening. The burden was lifting. Amelia said, "I just wanted to make sure it got back to him. It's a lot of money." Agent Miller nodded slowly. Agent Miller said, "Indeed. We'll be taking this directly to him. Is there anything else you wish to report? Or anything else you found?" Amelia shook her head. Amelia said, "No, just the wallet." Agent Miller said, "Understood. Thank you again, Miss Amelia." He gave her a curt nod, a professional dismissal. The two agents turned and walked out of the diner as quickly as they had entered. The black sedan pulled away, disappearing down the street. Amelia watched them go, a strange mix of emptiness and pride swirling inside her. She had done the right thing. She had given up a fortune that could have solved all her problems, for nothing. But she still had her integrity. She still had Clara's teachings. That, she told herself, was worth more than any amount of money. She returned to her duties, her movements a little lighter, her heart a little less burdened. The wallet was gone. The temptation was gone. The struggle was over, or so she thought. She had no way of knowing that her simple act of returning the wallet was not the end of the story, but merely the very beginning. Arthur Sterling was a man who noticed everything. He ran his empire with an iron grip, built on keen observation and a deep understanding of human nature. When Agent Miller presented him with the retrieved wallet, he didn't just nod and dismiss it. He listened intently to Miller's report, especially the details about the young waitress, Amelia. Agent Miller said, "She called our general security line, sir. Found it at the Liberty Diner. Identified it perfectly, including the family crest. She seemed very sincere." Arthur Sterling, seated behind his vast mahogany desk, steepled his fingers, his sharp eyes fixed on a point beyond the window, overlooking the bustling city below. He remembered the diner, the quiet corner table, the surprisingly good coffee for such a humble place. He remembered the young waitress, her tired but earnest face, her efficient movements. He had observed her, as he observed everyone, a habit born of a lifetime of business deals and power plays. He had seen her kindness to an elderly customer, the way she spoke softly to a child. He hadn't left the wallet by accident. He had left it deliberately. It was a test. A very specific, very rare test he sometimes performed when something intrigued him. He had often wondered, in his isolated world of immense wealth, if true honesty still existed, if someone, when faced with overwhelming temptation, would choose principle over personal gain. Amelia had passed his test, a test many others, in his experience, had failed spectacularly. This wasn't just a lost wallet. It was a character assessment, and Amelia had shone brighter than he could have imagined. Arthur Sterling said, "Miller, ensure that young woman's name and the diner's address are noted. I want a full background report on her by the end of the day." Agent Miller, accustomed to Sterling's unusual requests, simply nodded. Agent Miller said, "Yes, sir." Immediately, Amelia, back at the diner, was wiping down the counter as the lunch rush started to pick up. She felt a strange sense of peace, a quiet satisfaction. She had made the right choice, even though it meant more struggle, more worry. She didn't know that miles away, in a towering skyscraper of polished glass and steel, her name was being researched, her life laid bare, by one of the most powerful men in the city. She didn't know that her small act of honesty had not just returned a wallet, but had opened a door to a future she could never have imagined. A future that held both incredible opportunities and unforeseen dangers. Her humble life was about to intersect with a world of immense wealth and power, a collision that would change everything. The test wasn't over. It had only just begun. And the real challenges, the real choices, were still ahead. Days turned into a week into two. Life at the Liberty Diner returned to its monotonous rhythm for Amelia. The memory of the lost wallet and the visit from Sterling Global Security faded into the background, becoming just another strange story to tell Clara on a quiet evening. Amelia's struggles remained. The medical bills for Clara continued to pile up, heavier and more numerous than ever. The landlord's threats became more urgent. The old apartment grew colder, with each passing night as winter truly began to bite. The initial relief she felt at returning the wallet had slowly given way to the familiar ache of financial worry. She sometimes wondered if she had been foolish, if she had missed her one chance at escaping the endless cycle of poverty. But then she would look at Clara, peaceful in her sleep, and remember her grandmother's words about honesty. Meanwhile, in the polished offices of Sterling Global Industries, Arthur Sterling had received the comprehensive report on Amelia. He read it with meticulous attention, every detail absorbed by his sharp mind. Her meager income, her long hours, her unwavering dedication to her ailing grandmother. The report highlighted her spotless record, her quiet resilience, her profound sense of duty. It confirmed everything he had observed and tested. She was, he realized, a rare find in a world often driven by greed and self-interest. He also learned about Clara, Amelia's grandmother. He discovered Clara's history, her quiet life, her dedication to her family. The report mentioned a small, forgotten detail from Clara's past, her maiden name. A name that, to Arthur Sterling, resonated with a deep, unsettling familiarity. It was the same maiden name as his mother's sister, a sister who had vanished from his family's life decades ago, believed to have run away after a bitter disagreement with his formidable grandfather. A sister whose existence had been quietly erased from family records, a painful, unspoken chapter in the Sterling legacy. Arthur Sterling paused, the report clutched in his hand. The family crest on the wallet, Amelia's strong principles, and now, this surprising connection to his past. He felt a sudden, unexpected jolt. Could it be? Could Amelia be connected to that part of his family, the part that had been carefully hidden away? His mother had rarely spoken of her sister, only mentioning her with a wistful sadness, a quiet longing for what had been lost. He picked up the phone. Arthur Sterling said, "Miller, find out everything you can about Clara Davies. Specifically, her family history, her parents, her siblings. Go back as far as you need to. I want to know if she has any connection to the Sterling family, specifically my mother's side." Agent Miller, always efficient, replied. Agent Miller said, "Yes, sir. On it." The new investigation was swift and discreet. Within days, Agent Miller presented Arthur Sterling with a thicker file, filled with old birth certificates, marriage records, and dusty census documents. The truth, when it emerged, hit Arthur Sterling with the force of a tidal wave. Clara Davies was indeed Clara Sterling, his mother's long-lost sister. Amelia was his grandniece, a direct descendant of the Sterling bloodline, living in poverty just a few miles from his opulent estate, entirely unaware of her rich family connection. His heart, usually a fortress of calm calculation, felt a strange pang. Guilt, regret, and a profound sense of injustice washed over him. While he had lived a life of unimaginable luxury, a part of his family, his blood, had struggled just to survive. The old family feud, the stern pride of his grandfather, had created a rift that had separated generations, leaving Amelia and Clara to suffer silently. He felt a deep, personal responsibility for their plight. His own family, a part of the Sterling legacy, was suffering in the shadows, unacknowledged and unsupported. Arthur Sterling decided, this would not stand. He would not allow the past's mistakes to define the present. He needed to meet Amelia and Clara, not as Arthur Sterling, the billionaire CEO, but as a family member, a man seeking to right a decades-old wrong. But he couldn't just show up on their doorstep, announcing himself as their long-lost relative. It would be too much, too overwhelming. He needed a plan, a way to introduce himself, to assess their true needs, and to offer help in a way that preserved their dignity. He called Agent Miller again. Arthur Sterling said, "Miller, I want to meet Miss Amelia again. But not as Mr. Sterling. I need you to arrange for me to visit the Liberty Diner. Disguise it as an official follow-up to the wallet incident. Tell her, I want to personally thank her. And ensure her shift schedule is clear." Agent Miller raised an eyebrow slightly, a rare display of surprise. Agent Miller said, "Sir, that seems unorthodox." Arthur Sterling said. Just do it, Miller. And make sure no one else knows about this connection. Not yet. Agent Miller said. Understood, sir. 2 days later, Amelia was finishing her morning shift. The diner was quiet. The rain had finally stopped, replaced by a crisp, cold winter sun. She was wiping down the last table when the bell above the door chimed, announcing a new customer. She looked up and saw him. Arthur Sterling. He wore a less formal, but still expensive, dark jacket and slacks. He looked just as imposing as she remembered, perhaps even more so, now that she knew his true identity. Her heart fluttered nervously. Why was he here? Arthur Sterling walked directly towards the counter, his gaze steady and direct. He sat down on a stool, his posture straight, radiating an aura of calm authority. Arthur Sterling said, "Good morning, Amelia." His voice was deep, smooth, and surprisingly gentle. Amelia's voice was a little shaky. Amelia said, "Good morning, Mr. Sterling. Can I get you something?" Arthur Sterling said, "No, thank you. I'm not here for coffee today. Agent Miller informed me of your honesty in returning my wallet. I felt it was important to thank you in person." Amelia felt a blush creep up her neck. Amelia said, "Oh, you didn't have to, Mr. Sterling. It was just the right thing to do." Arthur Sterling looked at her, his eyes unreadable. Arthur Sterling said, "The right thing to do, yes. But in my experience, Amelia, the right thing is often the most difficult path. Many would have chosen differently, especially given your circumstances." Amelia shifted uncomfortably. She didn't like the idea of him knowing about her circumstances. Amelia said, I believe in being honest. My grandmother taught me that." A faint, almost imperceptible smile touched Arthur Sterling's lips. Arthur Sterling said, "Your grandmother, Clara, isn't it?" Amelia's eyes widened slightly. Amelia said, "Yes. How did you know?" Arthur Sterling said, "Agent Miller mentioned it in his report. He gathered some general background information, just to ensure the wallet was returned to the proper person. Standard procedure, you understand." It was a partial truth, a carefully constructed answer. Amelia nodded slowly, though a prickle of unease ran down her spine. The idea of him knowing about Clara, about her life, felt invasive. Arthur Sterling said, "Amelia, I have a proposition for you. A personal one. Your integrity, your dedication to your grandmother, your work ethic. They are all qualities I admire greatly. I am looking for a personal assistant, someone I can trust, completely, someone with a strong moral compass. The position would be demanding, but it would offer a salary far beyond anything you earn here, along with benefits and opportunities you couldn't imagine. It would also allow you to care for your grandmother without worry." Amelia stared at him, dumbfounded. A personal assistant to Arthur Sterling? The CEO of Sterling Global? It sounded like something out of a dream or a particularly vivid movie. It was too good to be true. Her mind immediately flashed to Clara, to the medical bills, to the coal department. This could be the answer to everything. Amelia said, "Mr. Sterling, I don't know what to say. I'm just a waitress. I don't have experience with corporate work." Arthur Sterling said, "Experience can be taught, Amelia. Integrity cannot. I'm not looking for a resume. I'm looking for a person. I believe you are that person. Think about it. There's no pressure. But I would urge you to consider the possibilities for yourself and your grandmother." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a simple, elegant business card. It was thick, heavy paper, with just his name and a private number. Arthur Sterling said, "This is my direct line. Call me if you're interested. Take a few days. Speak with your grandmother. I understand this is a big decision." He stood up, his tall figure casting a long shadow across the diner floor. Arthur Sterling said, "Thank you again, Amelia, for your honesty. I look forward to hearing from you." With a final, lingering look, he turned and walked out, leaving Amelia standing alone behind the counter, the heavy business card clutched in her hand. Her mind was reeling. A personal assistant? A salary that could change her life? It was an impossible choice, yet also a no-brainer. This was the opportunity of a lifetime. A golden key out of the poverty she had always known. But a nagging feeling, a tiny seed of doubt, began to grow in her mind. Why her? Why was he offering such a life-changing position to a simple waitress who had merely returned his wallet? It felt too sudden, too perfect. There was something more to this, something she couldn't quite grasp. She immediately thought of Clara. She had to tell her grandmother. Clara, with her quiet wisdom, would help her make sense of this incredible offer. The thought of providing Clara with comfort and care, without the constant fear of expenses, filled her with a powerful hope she hadn't felt in years. This wasn't just about her. It was about giving Clara the peace and dignity she deserved in her final years. Amelia closed the diner for the night, her mind buzzing with 1,000 questions. She hurried home, the cold winter air invigorating her, her steps lighter than they had been in months. She burst into the small apartment, eager to share the news with Clara. But as she entered the living room, she found Clara not in her usual chair, but lying still on the small, worn couch, her face pale, her breathing even more shallow and ragged than usual. A half-eaten bowl of soup sat on the table beside her, untouched. Amelia's heart dropped, a cold, heavy stone in her chest. All thoughts of Arthur Sterling, of the job offer, vanished. All that mattered was Clara. Amelia rushed to her grandmother's side, her hand flying to Clara's forehead. It was burning hot. Amelia said, "Grandma? Clara? What's wrong? Are you okay?" Clara's eyes fluttered open, unfocused and weak. Clara said, "Amelia, my chest. It hurts." Her voice was a bare whisper, filled with pain. Panic surged through Amelia. This was worse than anything she had seen before. She knew, with a terrible certainty, that Clara needed a doctor, not just medicine, but immediate, professional help. She needed a hospital. And hospitals, she knew, cost money they didn't have. The golden opportunity Arthur Sterling had offered now felt like a cruel trick of fate, arriving just as her deepest fear was coming true. She looked at the elegant business card still clutched in her hand. The private number, Arthur Sterling. The man who knew her name, knew about Clara, and offered her a lifeline. She had to make a choice, and quickly. This wasn't about integrity anymore. This was about survival. This was about Clara. The stakes had suddenly become terrifyingly real, pulling her into a world she didn't understand, a world where the power of money could mean the difference between life and death. And she was about to make a desperate call, completely unaware that the man on the other end held a secret that connected them far deeper than a simple job offer. Amelia's hand trembled as she stared at the business card. Arthur Sterling's name, stark and powerful, seemed to pulse on the heavy cardstock. Clara's labored breathing filled the small apartment, each rasping gasp a dagger in Amelia's heart. There was no time to think, no time for pride or questions about his motives. Clara needed help, and this man, this billionaire, was suddenly her only hope. She dialed the private number, her fingers shaking as she pressed the last digit. It rang only once before a crisp, professional voice answered. A calm voice said, "Sterling." Amelia's voice was a desperate whisper. Amelia said, "Mr. Sterling? It's Amelia. From the diner." Arthur Sterling's voice, though still calm, held an immediate note of concern. Arthur Sterling said, "Amelia, is everything all right? You sound distressed." Amelia said, No, it's not. It's my grandmother, Clara. She's very sick, Mr. Sterling. She's burning up, and she can't breathe. I think she needs a hospital, but I don't have any money." The last words were a choked sob, raw with fear and helplessness. There was a brief silence on the other end, but it was not a hesitant silence. It was the silence of a mind moving swiftly, making decisions. Arthur Sterling said, "Amelia, listen carefully. Do not move Clara. I'm sending an ambulance. Immediately. It will be the best private medical service available, not the local public hospital. Do you understand?" Amelia could barely believe her ears. Amelia said, "A private ambulance? But Mr. Sterling, I can't pay for that." Arthur Sterling's voice was firm, leaving no room for argument. Arthur Sterling said, "You don't need to worry about payment, Amelia. Just make sure Clara is comfortable. The ambulance will be there in 10 minutes. Stay by her side. I will arrange everything, and I'm coming with them." Before Amelia could respond, he hung up. 10 minutes. It felt like an eternity in a blink of an eye. Amelia rushed back to Clara's side, stroking her forehead, murmuring reassurances she didn't fully feel. Clara was fading in and out of consciousness, her skin alarmingly hot. Amelia felt a profound wave of gratitude for Arthur Sterling. even as a tiny part of her wondered what strings he was pulling, what he expected in return. But those thoughts were quickly pushed aside by the immediate, overwhelming need to save Clara. Exactly 10 minutes later, a siren wailed in the distance, growing rapidly louder. A sleek, modern ambulance, unlike anything Amelia had ever seen, pulled up to their dilapidated building. Two paramedics, impeccably dressed and incredibly efficient, rushed in with a stretcher and a flurry of advanced medical equipment. Behind them, Arthur Sterling entered, his face grim, his presence filling the small apartment. He wore a dark overcoat, and his eyes, as they met Amelia's, conveyed a deep, unexpected empathy. Arthur Sterling said, "Amelia, they're the best. They will take excellent care of her." The paramedics worked quickly, their movements precise and practiced. They gently transferred Clara onto the stretcher, hooking her up to monitors, administering oxygen. Clara was barely conscious, but her breathing seemed to ease slightly with the oxygen. As they wheeled her out, Arthur Sterling placed a reassuring hand on Amelia's shoulder. Arthur Sterling said, "Come, you're coming with us." Amelia followed, dazed, into the ambulance. The ride to the hospital was a blur. It wasn't the local public hospital she expected, but a grand, imposing private facility she didn't even know existed in the city, a place that looked more like a luxury hotel than a medical center. When they arrived, a team of doctors and nurses was already waiting, ready to take Clara straight into an examination room. Arthur Sterling moved with a quiet authority, speaking to the medical staff in low, urgent tones, making sure Clara received immediate, top-tier care. Hours later, after what felt like an eternity of agonizing waiting, a kind-faced doctor approached Amelia and Arthur Sterling in the luxurious waiting room. The doctor said, "Miss Amelia, Mr. Sterling, your grandmother is stable now. She has a severe case of pneumonia, complicated by her existing health issues. It's a serious condition, but we caught it in time. She's resting comfortably, and we've started her on a strong course of antibiotics and supportive therapy. She's in good hands here." Relief washed over Amelia, so potent it made her knees weak. Tears welled in her eyes. Amelia said, "Thank you. Thank you so much, doctor." She looked at Arthur Sterling, her eyes filled with raw gratitude. Amelia said, "Thank you, Mr. Sterling. You saved her life." Arthur Sterling's gaze was gentle. Arthur Sterling said, "Amelia, we have something important to discuss. Something that goes far beyond a job offer, or even the wallet." He led her to a private consultation room, a quiet space with comfortable chairs. He sat opposite her, his expression serious. Arthur Sterling said, "Amelia, the reason I know about Clara, and the reason I made you that offer, is more complex than you realize." When Agent Miller conducted the background check, he uncovered something extraordinary, something that connects us deeply. Amelia felt a shiver run down her spine. The tiny seed of doubt she'd felt earlier, the one about his unusual generosity, began to blossom into full-blown apprehension. Amelia said, "Connects us? What are you talking about?" Arthur Sterling said, "Clara. Clara Davies. That's her married name, isn't it? Her maiden name was Sterling. Clara Sterling. She is my mother's sister, my aunt, which makes you my grandniece, Amelia. We are family." Amelia stared at him, utterly stunned. The words hung in the air, heavy and unbelievable. Her brain struggled to process them. Family? Arthur Sterling? The billionaire, the titan of industry, her great-uncle? It sounded like a twisted joke, a cruel twist of fate. Amelia said, "No, that's impossible. My grandmother never spoke of having a sister, let alone a family like yours. She only ever mentioned her parents, who passed away when she was young. And our last name is Davies. We don't have any rich relatives." Arthur Sterling said, "It's true, Amelia. My grandfather, your great-grandfather, was a very proud, very stubborn man. He disowned my mother's sister, Clara, after she eloped with a man he disapproved of, a man named Thomas Davies. He erased her from the family records, forbade anyone to speak of her. It was a painful, shameful secret for our family for decades. My mother grieved for her sister, but she never defied my grandfather. And after he passed, the silence continued, the rift too wide to mend." He looked at her, a profound sadness in his eyes. Arthur Sterling said, "I only discovered the truth when Miller's investigation into Clara's full history confirmed it. Your grandmother is my aunt. And you, Amelia, our family. Direct sterling blood. Amelia felt a whirlwind of emotions. Shock, disbelief, a surge of anger. All those years of struggle, all the hardship, the fear, the cold, the hunger, all of it, while her family, her blood, lived in unimaginable wealth just miles away. Why now? Why did it take a lost wallet and Clara nearly dying for this truth to come out? Amelia said, so all this time, we were struggling, barely surviving, while you were living like this? And you never knew? Or you didn't care? Her voice cracked with emotion, a mix of hurt and accusation. Arthur Sterling flinched, the words clearly hitting him hard. Arthur Sterling said, Amelia, I understand your anger, and you have every right to feel it. I truly did not know until very recently. My mother passed away years ago, and she carried the secret to her grave, too heartbroken to reopen old wounds. My grandfather ensured the records were sealed, the memories buried. But that is no excuse. I should have known. I should have tried harder to find her. The guilt I feel right now is immense. I allowed a family feud to create a chasm that swallowed a part of my own blood. He leaned forward, his hands clasped, his gaze earnest. Arthur Sterling said, this is why I brought Clara here. Not just because you called, but because she is family. This is why I offered you the job. Not as a reward for honesty, but as a way to bring you into our world, to support you, to make amends for decades of neglect. I want to help you both, Amelia. I want to rectify the injustice of the past. I want to welcome you back into the Sterling family. Amelia looked away, her mind a storm of conflicting thoughts. His words were sincere, his regret palpable. He had saved Clara's life, without a moment's hesitation, without asking for anything in return. He had immediately provided the best care money could buy. That wasn't the act of a cold, uncaring man, but the weight of the past, the knowledge of all the suffering that could have been avoided, was crushing. Amelia said, what does that even mean? Welcome us back into the Sterling family. Her voice was still guarded, laced with suspicion. Arthur Sterling said, it means everything, Amelia. It means no more struggling. It means proper medical care for Clara for the rest of her life, paid for by the family. It means a comfortable home, a proper education for you, if you want it. It means access to resources, opportunities, a life free from worry. It means you are a Sterling, and you will be treated as such. He paused, letting the magnitude of his words sink in. Arthur Sterling said, but it also means a choice, Amelia. A huge choice. You can choose to accept our help, accept your place in this family, and leave your old life behind. Or you can refuse, and I will still ensure Clara receives the best medical care here, anonymously if you prefer. The choice is entirely yours, but I hope you will consider it carefully, for Clara, and for yourself. Amelia sat in silence, the hum of the hospital around her a distant drone. Her life, which had been so clear, so narrowly defined by her duties and her struggles, had suddenly exploded into 1,000 possibilities. A world of luxury, power, and unimaginable comfort lay before her, offered by a man who was her long-lost great-uncle. A chance to save Clara, truly save her, not just for now, but for good. A chance for a future she could never have dreamed of. But accepting it also meant letting go of everything she knew. It meant stepping into a world she didn't understand, a world that might come with its own hidden costs and expectations. It meant trusting this man, her great-uncle, who had kept this secret from her for so long. It was a dizzying, terrifying, exhilarating prospect. The weight of this decision, the sheer magnitude of it, pressed down on her. She closed her eyes, picturing Clara's tired but loving face. Then the worn-out diner, the rain-swept streets of her neighborhood. She had always been Amelia, the waitress, the survivor, the honest one. Now, she was faced with the possibility of becoming Amelia Sterling, a woman of wealth and privilege. Could she make that leap? Could she leave behind the values that had defined her, or would she carry them with her into this new world? The ultimate test of her character was not just returning a wallet, but deciding what kind of life and what kind of person she truly wanted to be. The decision would change everything, and she knew it. She had to choose, and she had to choose for more than just herself. She had to choose for Clara. Amelia sat in the quiet consultation room, the weight of Arthur Sterling's words heavy in the air. The offer was dazzling, a lifeline thrown to a drowning woman. A new life, a life free from the relentless grind, the constant worry, the chilling fear of not being able to provide for Clara. The images flashed in her mind. Clara healthy and smiling in a warm, comfortable home, no longer struggling for breath. Herself, learning, growing, finally able to pursue something beyond serving coffee and clearing tables. It was everything she had ever secretly wished for, delivered by a man who was, impossibly, family. But the anger still simmered beneath the surface, a hot ember that refused to die. Decades of neglect, generations separated by a stubborn old man's pride. Could she truly accept this sudden, massive generosity from a family that had, for so long, unknowingly abandoned her and Clara? Could she trust Arthur Sterling's sincerity, or was there some hidden agenda, some subtle expectation that would chip away at her independence, at the values Clara had instilled in her? The world of the wealthy was as alien to her as a distant star, and she was wary of its dazzling, potentially dangerous glow. She thought of Clara. Her grandmother's face, etched with kindness and quiet dignity, appeared in her mind's eye. Clara had always taught her to stand tall, to be true to herself. But Clara had also taught her to be practical, to seize opportunities when they arose, especially if they meant a better life. Clara would want her to be safe, to be secure. Clara would want her to thrive. Amelia looked at Arthur Sterling. His face was unsmiling, yet there was a vulnerability. In his eyes, she hadn't expected from such a powerful man. A genuine regret. He wasn't demanding anything. He was offering, freely, to right a wrong he had only just discovered. He had already saved Clara's life, without a moment's hesitation. That act alone spoke volumes. Amelia took a deep, trembling breath. She had to choose, not just for herself, but for Clara. Amelia said, "Mr. Sterling, I need to see Clara. I need to talk to her before I can make a decision this big. I can't choose a whole new life without her." Arthur Sterling nodded, a flicker of understanding in his eyes. Arthur Sterling said, "Of course, Amelia. That is a wise and loving request. She is resting, but the doctor said a short visit would be fine. I'll arrange for you to see her." He led her through pristine hallways, past hushed nurses and expensive artwork, to a private room. Clara lay in a soft, clean bed, hooked up to a few gentle monitors, but her breathing was steady, her color returning. The change from their cold apartment, from her struggle on the couch, was profound. She looked peaceful. Finally, Clara's eyes fluttered open as Amelia approached. A weak but genuine smile touched her lips. Clara said, "Amelia, my dear, where are we? And you look so worried." Amelia sat on the edge of the bed, taking Clara's hand, feeling the warmth returning to her skin. Amelia said, "Grandma, you're in a hospital. The best one. You have pneumonia, but the doctors say you're going to be okay. Mr. Sterling." He arranged everything. Clara's eyes drifted to Arthur Sterling, who stood quietly by the door, a respectful distance away. A look of vague recognition, then confusion, crossed her face. Clara said, "Arthur, is that you? You look so much like your mother, Catherine, but you're so much older." Amelia's head snapped up. Clara knew him. She wasn't just guessing. Clara remembered. Arthur Sterling stepped forward, his voice choked with emotion. "Arthur Sterling," said Aunt Clara. "It is me, Arthur, Catherine's son. I am so deeply sorry. We searched for you. Or at least, I wish we had searched harder. I only just learned the truth." Clara's eyes, though still weak, held a surprising clarity. Clara said, "The truth. Yes, it was a long time ago. My father was a proud man. Too proud. I loved Thomas, Amelia's grandfather, more than anything. I couldn't leave him, even for the Sterling name. But I always wondered about Catherine, my sweet sister." A tear tracked down her wrinkled cheek. Amelia felt her own tears welling up. This was real. This wasn't some elaborate trick. This was a family reunion, decades in the making, born out of a lost wallet and a sudden crisis. Clara looked at Amelia, then back at Arthur. Clara said, "What is happening, Amelia? Why is Arthur here?" Amelia explained, softly, carefully, about finding the wallet, about Mr. Sterling's offer of a job, and then about his incredible revelation, about them being family. She spoke of the chance for a new life, for care for Clara, for an end to their struggles. Clara listened, her eyes thoughtful. When Amelia finished, Clara reached out and gently squeezed Amelia's hand. Clara said, "My dear, the past is the past. What matters is the present and the future." Arthur did not know. He has come to help, to make amends. That is what matters. He has a good heart, just like his mother. And you, my sweet Amelia, you have always done the right thing. Always. Your honesty brought us here. It brought us back to family. You deserve this, my love. You deserve a life without constant fear. I want you to take it. For both of us. Her grandmother's words were the clarity Amelia desperately needed. Clara, the purest soul she knew, was giving her blessing. It wasn't about forgetting who she was or abandoning her values. It was about carrying them forward into a new, brighter future. It was about healing old wounds, accepting help, and embracing a chance for a life she and Clara deserved. Amelia looked at Arthur Sterling, her eyes clear, her decision made. Amelia said, "I accept, Mr. Sterling. I accept your offer. For Clara. For us." A genuine, heartfelt smile finally broke across Arthur Sterling's face. It was a smile of relief, of hope, of a burden finally lifting. Arthur Sterling said, "Call me Uncle Arthur, Amelia, and welcome home, both of you." And so, Amelia's life, once a predictable cycle of hardship and humble service, transformed. Clara recovered fully, cared for in a luxurious home provided by Arthur, surrounded by comfort and peace she had never known. Amelia, with Arthur's guidance, embraced her new role. She proved to be a natural, her quiet intelligence and strong work ethic shining brightly in the corporate world. She learned quickly, absorbing knowledge like a sponge, her integrity a steady compass in the sometimes cutthroat world of high finance. She pursued further education, her dreams of learning finally realized. She became more than just an assistant, she became a trusted confidant, a vital part of Sterling Global, and a beloved member of a family that had been broken and was now, finally, made whole. The symbol on the wallet, the stylized S with the hawk's wing, once just a fancy detail, now meant something profound. It was the Sterling crest, her crest. It symbolized a family legacy, one that now included Amelia's own quiet strength, her unwavering honesty, and her compassionate heart. She never forgot where she came from, the lessons of the diner, the struggle. Those experiences grounded her, kept her humble, and fueled her desire to use her new influence to help others who faced similar struggles. She ensured that the Liberty Diner received a generous donation, helping Mr. Rodriguez keep his beloved establishment running and establishing a fund to help struggling waitstaff in the city. Her journey, sparked by a simple act of honesty, had not just changed her life, but touched the lives of many others, proving that true wealth lies not in what you have, but in who you are, and what you choose to do with what you're given. This story of Amelia and Arthur Sterling is a powerful reminder that integrity, even in the face of overwhelming temptation, can lead to the most unexpected and life-changing rewards. It shows us that sometimes, the greatest treasures are found not in what we seek, but in the simple act of doing what is right. It also reminds us that family ties, no matter how frayed or forgotten, can be mended, bringing healing and hope across generations. What do you think about Amelia's choice? If you were in her shoes, facing such immense hardship, and then such an incredible offer, what would you have done? Would you have accepted a place in a family that had unknowingly neglected you for so long? Or would you have chosen to remain independent? Share your thoughts and tell us where you're watching from in the comments below. Your insights help us explore these deeper themes together. If this story moved you, if it made you reflect on the power of honesty and the importance of family, please show your support. Give this video a big thumbs up, share it with someone who needs a dose of inspiration, and make sure you subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell. Your likes, shares, and subscriptions help us continue to bring you more stories of human resilience, unexpected turns of fate, and the enduring power of a good heart. Join our community as we uncover more tales that challenge perceptions and inspire us all.